So before witches had books or tools or beautifully created altars, we had plants. And plants were the first magic. That was the first teacher to all of us witches. It was the doorway to our intuition. So hi, I'm Gayle, the witch next door. Welcome to this wild wisdom series. And in the first 3 episodes, we are going to dig deep on the first encounter with magical plants, why it's really important as part of our practice, and it's especially so for those that want to connect more deeply to the spirit of plants. So by the end of this 3-part series, you will understand how to work with herbs in a way that's magical and grounded, and safe as well. We'll talk about the safety around that too. If you want my full system, I released a book on the 17th of February called Harvesting Magic, Magical Foraging and Practical Magic. So I have got my notes here, so you're going to see me flip between the two because there's so much information in this 3-part series that I just want to make sure I get everything covered. And my brain's a scatterbox, as you know. So in the first episode, we have 4 chapters. So feel free to jump around and go to a different chapter if that appeals to you. But you can listen to the whole lot, and it's a great education series. So I hope you get absolutely tons from it. So we're going to go through my 3 layers to working with plant magic, how I operate. Then we're going to talk about why witches always start with plants. What does that mean? Then I will give you an indication of 5 plants that every new witch should work with first. And then the finale, we will talk about building a relationship with plant spirit, but we're not going to do it in a weird way, okay? We're going to do it in a way that works for the normal people like me and you. So grab yourself a candle, let's get comfy, let's really dig into it. So welcome to chapter 1, and this is about my process of working with plant magic. We're going to break it down into 3 layers, and I always work with 3 layers because that's all you need. So when you start thinking about it in a layered process, it helps you connect more fully. So the first one is plant lore. This is around the stories, the myth, the legends, and the cultural relationships that humans had with plants. Lore really gives the plant a story, so it's crucial to understand the history around that plant. The second one, and this is the one that witches jump to more often than not, is the correspondences. And it's really important because that is the language of plants. This is the magical language of plants. And they can represent not only energy, but spiritual and symbolically. It could be about protection, love, clarity, all of those things. But correspondences are really the roadmap of what the plant is about. But it's not the first thing we should jump to. And then the third layer is about safe practice. So we've got the law, we've got the correspondence, and then we've got the safety. And people don't like to admit that this is more important than it actually is. So safety can be about the dosage you use, allergies, pets, things like that. So it's super important to understand the safety around each plant. So law gives it the story, correspondences are the language, and the safety gives you the wisdom to work with it in a really safe way. So make sure you follow that 3-step process if it aligns to you. In my own practice, this is the way I teach, and this is why we always start with the green ones. We always start with the plant magic, and not because it's cute or aesthetic, because plants teach us where the magic lives in our body. It's really important to feel into where that magic is and not just only a piece of rosemary. So I'm going to teach you about presence, relationships and trust, and it's the foundation of everything that I do when working with plants. So meet you in chapter 2. Welcome to chapter 2, and the question is, why do witches always start with plants? There's nothing wrong, right, with the top 10 herbs for protection. They're a great entry point, and they're also really educational. I've been known to do these videos many times in the past, and when we're a new witch, it's a really good point to start to try and understand what the best herbs are that we should have. However, what this doesn't teach you is about the relationship that you can hold. This is more just copying, so you need to be able to learn what that plant magic means for you. So if you're only picking herbs based on what you see on TikTok or like what you see on Pinterest, it's not powerful. And the magic is within you, and the magic is within that plant too. So that power and that magic needs wisdom. So it's really good to learn about plants in a much deeper, thought out way. You don't need all the rare herbs. That's another point I need to make. I see this all the time going, I need this specific herb for this specific spell. Actually, when you've got a relationship with those plants, you can see how to utilise them in a different way. And plants have altered our consciousness for generations. They've healed us, they've fed us, long before people wrote anything down. And every single culture has a story to tell around herbal magic and how it represents their history. So when you think back to historically about witches, They were the person that knew all the herb lore. They were the healer, the midwife, the protector. Sometimes they were the poisoner. Okay, not all witches are, ethical, but or maybe it was ethical. It depends on who they were poisoning. But plants were a language, and that was the thing that witches now and then understood. So what I have seen so often by new witches is everyone is ready to jump into the big spells or the curses or the really intense love magic, or even the heavy manifestation rituals, right? So, and that's understandable, but it can be really, really overwhelming. So the good old saying goes, learning to run before you can walk, right? And it's exactly the same with this. Plants will slow us down, and they invite you into a relationship. And that's the thing that you need to harness. They'll teach you to listen if you let them. So making tea, making anointing oils, a bath, simmer pots. These are like embodied grounding techniques. And these are the way that we learn how energy moves through that plant and also through ourselves. So herb teaches you to feel that magic in your body. It doesn't just ask, it's teaching us how to move. What does that herb mean? How does it feel? And that's the thing that you really need to lean into. So I teach witches all the time how to somatically feel into herbal magic, through breath, through sensation, because your body is the first divination tool, right? We all like to use divination, but actually it's us that's channeling that message. So your body can tell you more truth about a correspondence than a list ever will. So you really need to think about that and how you can use your body to channel those messages. How many of you have jumped straight to this? I guarantee that you've missed out the somatic information that I gave in chapter 2 because you want to know what 5 plants witches should work with first. And I get it, right? That was the starting point for most of us. We got the list and we figured out what herbs we needed for what magic. But actually, it's really important to understand not only the history, but also the way that it moves within our body. So I'd implore you to go back. But we are now going to dive into the the top 5 plants that witches should work with. And you don't need 50 herbs to be a witch, okay? You just need a handful that you know really well and really intimately. So let's go through each of these plants that I think are really important. So rosemary, it's the all-rounder. We say we can use it for everything, which isn't necessarily true, but it's good for cooking. You can make tea with it. You can use it for hair rinse. And it's great for hair growth, actually, along with nettle, but I won't dive too much into that. But you can make really good hair oils too. So if you only had one herb, rosemary could probably do most things. It's good for protection and purification and clarity. So it's got great magical correspondences. But what I want you to do is lean into the relationship you have with rosemary. So to do that, smell it, cook with it, burn it, notice how your energy shifts. And then you're building a personal relationship with rosemary. So the second one, I want to say this is one of my favourites, but I know the third one's one of my favourites as well, so it's really tough. But nettle. And nettle is a boundary keeper. So from a practical perspective, it's really good for tea. It's got loads of really high value nutrients in nettle. It's great in soups. So consuming nettle is great. And it's abundant, right, as well. From a magical perspective, it's great at boundary work. We see it in boundaries all the time. Resilience and courage. So something I read about why does nettle sting us? So if you think about that intuitively, why does it sting? It's teaching you where your edges are. I love that. So that's something to remember. So from a relationship perspective, reflect on where you need stronger boundaries when you're working with nettle and see if you can strengthen it that way. And now my third one is my favourite. It's dandelion. It's the survivor. It outlives everything. From a practical perspective, it's really nutritious as well. You can use its leaves, its roots, its flowers. It's great in all types of magic to do with wishes and resilience and divination. It's just so great. I'm going to get a tattoo of a dandelion this year, so I'm sure I'll share it on socials. But dandelions grow through concrete, like they're that resilient. So just think about that when you're connecting with that plant. And then a lovely little relationship that you can build is to blow the dandelion and make a wish. So do that and see how that feels within your body. And then they're all my favourites. Mugwort, I love to call it mugglewort. It's the threshold herb. Practically, it's good for dream pillows, smoke bundles. With caution, it can be. Again, look at the health and safety around that. But it's good for intuition and dreams and liminality. It's a really good witch's herb, and it stands at the doorway between the two worlds. Like it really is a threshold herb, one you should definitely have in your apothecary. So when you want to think about your relationship with mugwort, do some dream journaling. Pop it under your pillow, do some work with it, and then do some dream journaling and see what pops up. You will really see a difference, I promise you. And then lastly, and not leastly, is the Courage of Herb Thyme. It's a great one. It's great for teas and cookings and steaming. Also really good for like courage, purification, confidence. Perfect for that. So in history, they say that warriors used to wear thyme when they went into battle. So imagine if you had a really difficult conversation at work and you took a bit of thyme in your pocket. Got all the courage you need. So books can tell you what herbs mean. They can, but only your body can tell you how it feels and what that represents to you. So there's an idea that you're only a real witch if you're foraging plants and running around the forest. And honestly, that's really exclusionary. It's quite elitist. It's classist. I don't like that view. But you can work with these herbs so simply. You can either grow them or go out and forage them. We need to ask ourselves sometimes, what's the most important thing? Do we want a list that we can return to, or do we want to feel into our magic? And we know it's much stronger when we do that. So I'll see you in chapter 4. Now, this is quite frankly one of my most favourite chapters. This is about how we start working with plant spirit. And not in a weird way, you know, you can imagine us all running around, rolling on the ground. And although I do love that idea, we need to ask ourselves about how we want to build a relationship with plants. And they do have their own specific spirit. So this is a really important chapter. And we do often ask ourselves, right, are we making this up? And how do we feel into what's real and what's illusionary, I guess. And the truth is, imagination is really one of the ways that spirits speak to us. So we need to lean into that and understand that that's our truth and that's our spirit-led communication. So listening for that opens up our curiosity, we're receptive then as well to messaging. So forcing anything is trying to get an answer, and that's not really how spirit communication works. So in my work, I teach about how we can connect in a more embodied way, a more somatic way, how that energy runs through our bodies, not just like theatrics, right? This is a truly felt feeling and a sensation. So in your practice, I want you to do this. I want you to journal in your own time. Hold a plant, one of the ones that we've spoken about, or maybe something else that you feel drawn to. And I want you to hold or sit with that plant. Close your eyes. And then notice how your body shifts. Notice the things that are coming up. Make sure you journal this as well. Where do you feel it? What emotion arises when you're holding that plant or sitting next to it? And what memory surfaces as well. Remember, we are all witches coming back to ourselves. This is stuff that we're remembering, and plant magic is key to that. So over time, you will start to recognise the plant signatures, how it resonates for you, how that relationship is for you, how the spirit communicates through you as well. And if you're at the very beginning of your path, or even been practicing for years and just feel a bit like you're unmoored and you're unbalanced, come back to plants. They will remind you. They will open up that spirit communication. I promise you that. So magic doesn't begin with elaborate tools or the perfect rituals. It begins with noticing. The art of noticing is everything. And we're living in a world where the plants are around us and we can notice that energy time and time again. So remember, if you do want to dig deeper, go into plant lore, correspondences, how to work with herbs safely and magically. Everything I teach is in my book that's coming out on the 17th of February. Harvesting Magic, Magical Foraging and Practical Magic, which I cannot wait for you all to get. And it will be on my website. But for all of those that are interested actually in a much deeper dive, I'm doing a hands-on 4 to 6 week course. I've not quite figured out how I'm going to develop that yet. But it's called Land in Full Voice. And I'm going to deliver that in August. Which is the height of summer when everything's abundant. And this is a course in herbs, foraging and reverence. So watch out for the dates for that. If you want more, drop me a message or an email in the usual places. And yeah, I hope that your journey with plants is extraordinary, just like mine. And I hope you've enjoyed this first in this wisdom series. And I'd love to know what your feedback is, whether I can make it more fluid, because I have to look at my notes all the time. I don't know. Let me know. But it's good to see you, and thanks for watching.